September the 6th, 2025, and developing news coming out as we're hearing that U.S. and Venezuelan military aircrafts are airborne. Now, this coming as there is a lot of talk about war. We're hearing that Donald Trump, the United States, is currently waging war against the drug cartels that have been entering into the United States. And Maduro is saying that some of the actions that are being conducted by the United States are acts of war against Venezuela, and things are escalating. Tensions are increasing. Let me go and share with you the latest video footage and articles so that way you can see it for yourself. Let's take a look at the headlines here. Venezuela flies military aircrafts near U.S. Navy ships for a second time. Pentagon officials say Venezuela is aggravating the United States, responding back to what has been taking place. Now take a look at this. The U.S. deploys stealth jets to the Caribbean as Venezuelan tensions escalate. Now, Marco Rubio says that Trump wants to wage war on Venezuelan drug traffickers, blow them up if that's what it takes. It's a war on killers. It's a war on terror, Rubio said. Now, in addition to that, you might have heard, take a look, coming out just 6 hours ago, Trump has now ordered the return of the U.S. War Department. He said, we are not on the defense. We are going on the offense to take down these criminals. Now, J.D. Vance goes nuclear when accused of war crimes. He said he doesn't give a blank regarding the attack on that drug ship that was entering into the United States. And let me know, do you agree? If so, drop a 47 if you support the killing of those 11 drug cartel people that were coming into the United States. There are some that are saying that it was not lawful. Now, also, drug cartels are waging an implicit war on American people, political commentator says, and Trump has deployed F-35s now to Puerto Rico in a war on the drug cartels, according to reports, all these coming out in the last 24 to 48 hours. We're hearing things are escalating. And again, let me know, do you support Donald Trump and the actions that he is taking as we're hearing that he is waging war on the cartels? Venezuelan President Maduro is taking this personally, saying these are acts of war against Venezuela. If you support Donald Trump, drop a 47. If you think no, put a no in the comments. Let me know your thoughts, but I'm going to dive into the details. I've got video footage, the articles, and as always, I'm going to put this on the screen, read right from it, show you the latest so that way you can know and rest assured that this is the latest information coming out as of today, September 6th, 2025. They're also going to be hyperlinked in the description. I cite all the sources for you. And do me a favor, if you appreciate that, before we dive in, take a quick second and just click that thumbs up like button. When you do that, it's totally free, helps out the channel a ton while we're live to get you the latest updated information. And who would have thought that we would have been here with Venezuela? We have seen so much going on with China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. Now, some tensions escalating very quickly between the United States and Venezuela. Now, in addition to that, to stay up to date on everything that's taking place, because there's a lot going on right now, we're actually hearing the United States is restructuring its military for consideration of the unification of China and Russia as well. After we saw that celebration that took place in China with the adversaries of the United States unifying, Donald Trump saying that they are conspiring against us. To stay up to date on all of this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's totally free. I will keep you up to speed as the information pours in. So subscribe, hit that like button. Let's go ahead and dive into some of these articles so that way you can see the latest. Now, we're going to start off with these articles. Then we're going to go ahead and dive into the video footage so that way you can see it for yourself. Now, Venezuela flies military aircrafts near U.S. Navy ships for a second time, the Pentagon officials say. Now, man, let me know your thoughts. These acts of aggression coming from Venezuela, are they really ready to go to war? They're claiming that they are a nation in arms, ready to fight. Yet at the same time, a lot of people saying that this is just bravado. This is just them bluffing, that Venezuela wants no part of a war with the United States. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is Venezuela bluffing, or are they for real? Put bluff or real in the comments. Now, let's take a look at this. It says, for the second time in 2 days, Venezuela has flown military aircraft in the vicinity of the USS Jason Dunham in international waters near South America. Multiple Defense Department officials confirmed to CBS News Friday, describing the action as turning into a game of chicken. The aircraft, which one Defense Department official said were F-16 fighter jets, flew over the Dunham sometime overnight Thursday. It was unknown if the aircrafts were armed. The Dunham, an Aegis-guided missile destroyer, did not engage, the official said. The aircraft was within weapons range for both the aircraft and the ship, the officials added. This comes after CBS News reported Thursday that the two F-16 fighter jets also flew over the Dunham earlier that day. The Pentagon later confirmed that incident, describing it in a statement as a highly provocative move that was designed to interfere with our counter-narco-terror operations. Now, the Dunham is among the flotilla of the U.S. warships dispatched to the region in recent weeks that the Pentagon says has been deployed to target criminal organizations and narco-terrorism. I would say they're going to be in trouble. President Trump had told reporters Friday in a response to a question of what could happen if Venezuela were to fly jets over U.S. Navy vessels again. If they fly in a dangerous position, I would say that you or your captains can make the decision as to what they want to do, Mr. Trump said while addressing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, on Tuesday, the White House announced that the U.S. military carried out a strike on an alleged drug trafficking boat from Venezuela that Mr. Trump said killed 11 people. The Trump administration said that the boat was operated by the Tren de Aragua gang, one of several gangs that have been designated by the White House as a foreign terrorist organization. Earlier Friday, a source familiar with the plans confirmed the U.S. is sending 10 F-35 fighters jets to the Caribbean for operations targeting drug cartels. So there you have it. The United States is not playing around. We are sending out those F-35s by the order of Donald Trump, as they're saying he is waging war on the cartels. And Venezuela doing acts of aggression, flying over those F-16s over our Navy fleet in the Caribbean to try to stop those cartels. Things are escalating significantly. Now, let's take a look at this. The U.S. deploys stealth jets to the Caribbean as Venezuelan tensions escalate. This coming out in the last 24 hours. The U.S. has ordered the deployment of 10 F-35 fighter jets to a Puerto Rico airfield for operations against designated narco-terrorist groups operating in the southern Caribbean, sources said. The planes are expected to arrive by late next week. This deployment adds to an already significant U.S. military presence in the region, as President Donald Trump pursues a campaign promise to intensify efforts against drug cartels accused of trafficking narcotics into the United States. The disclosure came just hours after the Pentagon accused Venezuela of a highly provocative action, citing a flyover by Venezuelan fighter jets above a U.S. Navy warship on Thursday. A U.S. official speaking anonymously said 2 Venezuelan F-16s flew over the USS Jason Dunham, which is one of at least 7 American warships in the Caribbean carrying more than 4,500 sailors and Marines. Earlier in the week, the U.S. military strike on Tuesday reportedly killed 11 people and sank the Venezuelan boat that Trump claimed was transporting illegal drugs. No further details have been provided about the substances on board or the legal framework under which the strike was authorized. And as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at that here in just a second. J.D. Vance questioned about the legality of that attack, and he said, "I don't give a blank." Secretary of the State Marco Rubio has also said the U.S. will, quote, blow up foreign crime groups if needed, possibly in collaboration with other countries. Now, they're going to help us find these people and blow them up, if that's what it takes, Rubio said during a visit to Ecuador. He then announced the U.S. will designate 2 of Ecuador's largest criminal gangs, Los Lobos and Los Choneros, as foreign terrorist organizations. At a news conference on Monday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said the United States is, quote, seeking a regime change through military threat. Venezuelan's communications ministry has not commented on the F-35 deployment or the fighter jet incident. Trump has accused Maduro of leading the Tren de Aragua's gang, which the U.S. designated a terrorist organization back in February. Maduro's government denies all allegations of involvement in drug trafficking. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called Maduro effectively a kingpin of a drug narco state. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, Hegseth defended Tuesday's strike and said such actions would continue, citing the threat posed by narcotics. Now, the poisoning of the American people is over, Hegseth said. U.S. Marines and sailors from the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit have also been conducting amphibious training and flight operations in southern Puerto Rico as a part of the military buildup. F-35s are stealth multi-role fighters with advanced capabilities that could potentially give the U.S. air dominance in any confrontation involving Venezuela's Air Force, which also operates F-16 aircraft. Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar criticized the deployment, calling Trump's actions lawless and questioned the constitutional authority for military strikes in the region. Congress has not declared war on Venezuela or Tren de Aragua, and the mere designation of a group as a terrorist organization does not give any president carte blanche to ignore Congress's clear constitutional authority on matters of war and peace, Omar said in a statement. Wow, there you have it. Let me know your thoughts. Now, do you agree with Omar, or do you agree with Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio on the way they're handling this? If you agree with Trump, again, drop those 47s in the comments and hit that like button. Now, if you agree with Omar, put no in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. But we're hearing that right now, a lot of them, they're saying, we don't care. We're going to do whatever it takes, and that this is a major threat to the United States, to its people, these narcotics entering into our country, and they're saying, blow them up if you have to. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's take a look at this a little bit more detail. Now, this coming out September the 4th, Marco Rubio says Trump wants to wage war on Venezuelan drug traffickers, blow them up if that's what it takes. Now, what's fascinating is this is a call for war on the cartels. Yet the president of Venezuela is saying that he is taking this as a call for war against them, that these are acts of war against Venezuela. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, the Trump administration is taking a hard stance against drug traffickers. Secretary of the State Marco Rubio announced in Ecuador during a joint news conference with the country's foreign minister that President Donald Trump is looking to wage war against narco-terrorists. It's a war on killers. It's a war on terror. These are not narco-traffickers. These are narco-terrorists who terrorize the countries they operate in, Rubio said. While he said that the U.S. was prepared to support Ecuador in its fight against drug traffickers, he added that the relationship between the two countries would not be about security only. The Secretary of the State said the U.S. is looking to expand its already vibrant economic relationship with the South American nation. Now, the remarks came as he announced the new designation of Los Choneros and Los Lobos as foreign terrorist organizations. Both groups originated in Ecuador. Additionally, the U.S. committed $13.7 million to combat drugs and crime, as well as $6 million worth of unmanned aircraft vehicle systems, or UAVs, for the Ecuadorian Navy. Now, Rubio emphasized the importance of the designation, saying that it allows the nations to share intelligence that can be actioned for potentially lethal operations, which would allow the host country to take out the terrorists. The Secretary of the State also discussed threats from Venezuela at the U.S. strike on the country. He claimed that the United Nations has suggested that Venezuela is not involved in the drug trade. I don't care what the UN says. The UN doesn't know what they're talking about. Maduro is indicted by a grand jury in the Southern District of New York, Rubio said of the Venezuelan dictator. That means the Southern District of New York presented the evidence to a grand jury, and a grand jury indicted him. And then a superseding indictment came out that was unsealed about a year and a half ago that specifically detailed Maduro's actions. So number one, let there be no doubt he, Nicolas Maduro, is an indicted drug trafficker in the United States, and he's a fugitive of American justice. Rubio also referenced cooperative governments, which he said would help the U.S. identify and locate drug traffickers. They're going to help us identify them. They're going to help us find these people and blow them up, if that's what it takes. They're going to help us with it, Rubio said. Earlier this week, U.S. Marines carried out an unprecedented strike on a cartel-operated vessel off of Venezuela. This signaled that the Trump administration was taking a tougher new approach to countering the international drug trade. The strike killed 11 members of Tren de Araguas, which the Trump administration designated as a terrorist organization in February. Please let this serve as a notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Beware. Wow, man, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. They are addressing this for all the nations of South America, but really letting Venezuela know, hey, you better pay attention to this, what is going on, because if anybody is trying to do this, we will blow them up if that is what is necessary. And they said, we don't care what the UN or anybody else says. In the United States, Maduro is considered a kingpin drug trafficker. We will take him down. Now, we are hearing that Donald Trump is getting very aggressive with this, going on the offense. In fact, renaming the Department of Defense. He wants to change it to the War Department. Trump orders the return of the U.S. War Department. Now, let me know, are you on board with this? If so, put yes. If no, put no. But no more Department of Defense. He said it's time for us to get aggressive and be the Department of War. Now, this article says, September 5th, yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Friday to rename the Department of Defense as the Department of War, reverting to a title that it held until after World War II, when officials sought to emphasize the Pentagon's role in preventing conflict. Trump's move represented his latest effort to rebrand the U.S. military, which has included his decision to preside over an extraordinary military parade in downtown Washington, D.C., and to restore the original names of military bases that were changed after racial justice protests back in 2020. So he is trying to take it back to how it was prior to those changes. Trump has also challenged conventional norms over domestic deployment of the U.S. Armed Forces, creating military zones along the southern U.S. border with Mexico to aid an immigration crackdown, as well as deploying troops in cities like Los Angeles and Washington. The Pentagon moved swiftly to change signs at the U.S. military's five-sided headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, switching Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's title on his door to Secretary of War, and the title of his number two, Steve Feinberg, to the Deputy Secretary of War. It's a very important change because it's an attitude, Trump said as he signed the executive order at the ceremony in the Oval Office. It's really about winning. The move would instruct Hegseth to recommend legislative and executive actions required to make the renaming permanent. Department name changes are rare and have required congressional approval. Still, Trump questioned whether he really needed a nod from Congress, even though his fellow Republicans hold slim majorities in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Two Republican senators, Mike Lee of Utah and Rick Scott of Florida, and one Republican House member, Greg Stueb of Florida, introduced legislation on Friday to make the change. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, introduced as the Secretary of War by Trump, cheered the change, which he has long advocated. We're going to go on the offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality, Hegseth said. Wow. There you have it, you guys. Now, do you like the Department of War or the Department of Defense? Let me know your thoughts. Put war or put defense. Which one do you think it should be? Trump is saying it's time for us to go on the offense and make it the Department of War. I guess you could put the DOW or the DOD. Which one do you think is better? Trump is saying it's time for a change. Now, a lot of people are saying, questioning the legality of this. Take a look at this. J.D. Vance goes nuclear when accused of war crimes. When they bombed that boat, that Venezuelan boat, he said, I don't give a blank. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Vice President J.D. Vance does not care if you call him a war criminal, at least not for using the U.S. military to kill suspected drug dealers abroad. That's how the vice president responded to criticism on Saturday when confronted over an American drone strike that killed 11 alleged drug traffickers from Venezuela in the Caribbean this week. MAGA critic Brian Krasentine called out the VP on X, writing, "Killing the citizens of another nation who are civilians without any due process is called a war crime." Vance responded, "I don't give a blank what you call it." Now, the strike on the alleged drug vessel, which President Donald Trump announced via Truth Social on Tuesday, immediately attracted criticism for being an over-the-top response in international waters. Administration officials celebrated it as a blow to the narcotics trade, while critics countered that those on board were not given a chance to defend themselves in the court of law. Vance, 41, is among those who have endorsed the controversial strike. "Killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military," Vance posted on X on Saturday. He was referring to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Araguas members, of which the administration said were on board of that doomed boat. The VP followed up with a tongue-in-cheek post about the attack. "Democrats, let's send your kids to die in Russia. Republicans, actually, let's protect our people from the scum of the earth." The Department of Defense, which has readopted the nickname the Department of War, has defended its actions in the Caribbean. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that he has absolute and complete authority to kill suspected drug smugglers in defense of the American people. Now, Hegseth has bragged about the drone strike, which was captured on video and shared by the White House. Venezuelan officials have claimed the video is a fake. "I'd say we smoked a drug boat, and there's 11 narco-terrorists at the bottom of the ocean," Hegseth said. "And when other people try to do that, they're going to meet the same fate." Trump said the attack was carried out on his orders. He posted to Truth Social, "The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters transporting illegal narcotics, heading to the United States. The strike resulted in 11 terrorists killed in action. No U.S. forces were harmed in this strike. Please let this serve as a notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware." There you have it, you guys. Man, now let's go ahead and take a look at some video footage so that way you can see what's coming out on this. This coming out in just the past 7 hours today. Updates as the United States, as I mentioned, is deploying F-35s to the Caribbean. This, they're saying, also taking place as we saw Venezuela sending those F-16s, flying them over our U.S. Navy vessels. Things are escalating. The tension's very high right now. We're going to be seeing where we go from here. And again, let me know your thoughts. Are we going to be having war with Venezuela? If so, put war, or if you think Venezuela doesn't want any of this and they're bluffing, let me know. Put bluff or war in the comments. What do you think is going to be unfolding here? Let me know your thoughts. But let's take a look at the latest video footage so you can see it for yourself.
Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro rallying his 8 million citizens to fight the United States, claiming it's essential to their sovereignty. This comes as President Trump deploys stealth fighter jets to the Caribbean and puts the Maduro regime on notice.
And when I see boats coming in, like loaded up the other day with all sorts of drugs, probably fentanyl mostly, but all sorts of drugs, and we're going to take them out. And if people want to have fun going on the high seas or the low seas, they're going to be in trouble.
Let's bring in former acting DEA administrator under Trump, Derek Maltz, along with PragerU political commentator and Venezuelan political refugee, Franklin Camargo. Franklin, I'm going to start with you because you know Venezuela very well. You know the population. Let's talk about this militia that he claims he has. What kind of militia is this, and how will they stand up to the U.S. Marines?
Yes, by using simple math, we know that there are not 8 million people willing to die for Nicolas Maduro in the narco-terrorist state. Before the refugee crisis, the Venezuelan population was around 30 million. 30 million Venezuelans in Venezuela. 15 years later, we know that around 25% of the population have escaped, have left the country. So in the last election in July 2024, the elections that Maduro stole, we know that he really got around 3 million votes. So are we saying that 3 million Venezuelans are willing to vote for him? Only 3 million, but 8 million Venezuelans are willing to die for him and for a narco-terrorist regime? So by looking at the numbers, we know this is not real. Maduro is desperate, and he's desperate because he knows he's facing the most powerful country in the world.
Yeah, I think his militia is also very hungry these days. And even if you included those numbers, there's a lot of old people in there. They're the ones who couldn't leave the country as easily as some of the younger people. So this militia is a joke. And by the way, social media is having a lot of fun in Venezuela with the pictures of the militia.
Yes.
So let's move to Derek, because Derek, I'm seeing 10 F-35 fighter jets that have gone into Puerto Rico to assist the fleet of destroyers that are out there. We know there's 4,000 Marines. Tell me if I'm wrong as I assess this. This isn't just, we don't need this force just to stop the drugs and the ghost ships of oil going out. Clearly that's stopping because of that presence, and they're not able to fund the regime the way they used to because of that. But it's also putting pressure on Maduro. But I think it may be a message to his inner circle as well, because doesn't that presence of the United States make it easier for someone in his inner circle to take the $50 million reward and turn him in when American forces are right there ready to help receive him?
Rachel, you're right, spot on. I mean, this president, the vice president, the secretary, Hegseth, secretary of war, I might add, have made it really clear they will use every tool on the table to keep the deadly drugs out of America, right? The top priority is to keep all Americans safe and secure. They're going to establish law and order, right? 20 years now, at least, Venezuela has been a command and control hub for global drug trafficking, not just in the United States. The leaders in the government of Venezuela have formed this deadly alliance, this dangerous alliance with the terrorists. So, of course, President Trump is brilliant in how he's putting the pressure on the entire regime. They're going to roll. He's going to be out of action soon, one way or another. So the U.S. government, Rachel, is building an army of good to defeat the evil. As you know, because you've been covering this with me for a long time, the kids are dying at record levels. The consequences must be severe. We've never had a terrorist killing this amount of Americans in the history of the United States. So enough is enough. And thank you to this administration. We're finally seeing some progress.
Yeah, sending a message to the entire hemisphere. Chinese out, narco dictators out. There's a new sheriff in town. This will be the president's greatest foreign policy legacy, if he is able to do this. And I don't think there's any doubt something's about to happen. All right, Derek Maltz, Franklin.
There you have it, you guys. Now let me know, do you agree? Is something about to happen? I saw people in the comments saying Maduro is about to find out. If you agree, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is something about to happen? Is Maduro about to find out? If so, put yes. If no, put no. But let's take a look at some more video footage. Like I said, a ton of video footage been coming out today all over the news regarding this. A lot of this popping off in the last 24 to 48 hours. We're going to be seeing where we go from here. Let's go ahead and take a look.
I want to switch gears here, Hal, and talk about another big story. This coming from Fox News' Jennifer Griffin reporting that the Pentagon is deploying 10 F-35 stealth fighter jets to Puerto Rico for counter-narcotics tasking in the Caribbean. A source familiar confirms to Fox News per Lucas Tomlinson. And I want to play out his report, and then we'll talk about it on the back end. Hal.
Okay.
If they do put us in a dangerous position, they'll be shut down.
The Pentagon called the flyover of armed Venezuelan F-16s over the USS Jason Dunham highly provocative. The flyover took place 2 days after U.S. forces launched a strike on a Venezuelan drug boat in the Caribbean. President Trump said all 11 members of the Tren de Aragua gang on board were killed. The State Department declared the group a foreign terrorist organization in February. A Republican member of the Senate Armed Services Committee called the strike justified.
The boat had been warned to stop. They chose not to. They were clearly running drugs. We had been tracking it since it left Venezuela.
Many Democrats called the strike a violation of international law.
They think they can get away with this. God knows what they are going to do next. So that's what we're looking to right now. And there is reason to believe that this was not a legal action.
President Trump's defense secretary says the actions are justified after 400,000 Americans died from drug overdoses during the Biden administration.
A foreign terrorist organization poisoning your people with drugs coming from a drug cartel is no different than Al-Qaeda.
At the height of the Obama administration, the U.S. military carried out drone strikes in 7 different countries: Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. Over 500 in all, killing an estimated 3,500 people, including hundreds of civilians. President Trump also made it official, changing the name of the Department of Defense.
We're going Department of War.
This marks the second time in U.S. history the Department of War nomenclature has been used to describe the cabinet that oversees the U.S. military. The first time was back in 1789. Congress still needs to approve the name change. At the White House, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
And Lucas continues to report there, saying President Trump warns Venezuela that if any more fighter jets threaten U.S. warships in the Caribbean, they will be shot down. Let's bring in back Hal Kemper to react to this news. And President Trump and the administration really going hard on these narco terrorists.
Well, very much so, and also going hard on, you can call Venezuela a narco state. It has been called that many times. And certainly President Trump and others made it clear that Maduro was tied to the boat that was actually hit with our U.S. forces, that was destroyed as it was fleeing, as it wouldn't stop. And so, and we designated Tren de Aragua and a number of other cartels as terrorist groups. We call them narco terrorists. So as a terrorist group, they fall under a different body of law. In fact, under international law, they're treated differently than they would if they were just a transnational criminal organization. So it does open up some other use of force options. The rules of engagement shift when confronting a terrorist that's fleeing, and you have a different set of parameters by what you believe they might do. And we've heard all those articulated certainly by Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, the president himself have all said the same thing. Now, the 10 F-35s. Okay, what we have down there is about 7 warships sitting off in that area of the world. By the way, it's not just narcotics down there. If you go next door to Guyana, they have this massive offshore oil capability that they're developing, which is going to transform the economy of Guyana. But it's also one that Venezuela has made threats that they're going to invade and take over actually most of the territory of Guyana, not so much because they want the land, they want the exclusive economic zone to take over the oil field out there. So we're making a pretty strong statement to Venezuela on many different levels, which is don't do things, especially at sea, which you may regret. Now, there is 7 warships down there. Part of that's what's called an amphibious ready group. An amphibious ready group has a Marine Expeditionary Unit. I believe it's the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit out of Norfolk is down there. They have about 22 Marines and sailors total. If you put it with the amphibious ready group and the MEU, it's about 4,500. But the MEU itself has about 2,200 Marines and sailors. And they have a composite squadron on board. They have a battalion of Marines as the ground combat element. They have a logistics element, a command element with them as well. However, the Marines, because we need that VSTOL capability, that vertical short takeoff and landing capability, we fly the F-35Bs. Very capable aircraft. It is the F-35 series, but there are compromises. There are certain things in order to get VSTOL, they had to kind of make some trade-offs, if you will. So it's not necessarily the air superiority fighter that you might want, say, with an F-35A, which...
So there you have it, you guys. So they're discussing all of those fighters that are out there right now. And let's actually take a look at some of the articles that have been coming out on this so that way you can get more details regarding this. Take a look here. Trump deploys the F-35s to Puerto Rico in war on drug cartels, according to reports, this coming out in the last 24 hours. Now, you can see here, this article says that the U.S. has ordered 10 F-35 fighter jets to be deployed to Puerto Rico as the Trump administration steps up its war on the drug cartels, sources have told Reuters. Now, the planes are being sent to an airfield to conduct operations against designated narco-terrorist organizations. The unnamed sources said bolstering an already strong U.S. military presence in the southern Caribbean. The planes are expected to be in the position by the end of next week. There was no official comment from the Trump administration. Newsweek contacted the Department of Defense, which is now being known as the Department of War, on Friday morning yesterday, outside regular office hours for comments. Here is the U.S. Navy unit in the Caribbean seas, and you can see where they are being stationed at. Reconnaissance aircrafts, drones, fighter aircraft, submarines, amphibious transport docks, amphibious assault ships, littoral combat ships, cruise and destroyers, all throughout the Caribbean. Now, here's why it matters. President Donald Trump has launched a new campaign against drug cartels in the southern Caribbean, notably Venezuela. On Tuesday, the U.S. carried out a strike against drug-carrying vessels that departed from Venezuela and was operated by the Tren de Araguas gang, in what was a dramatic escalation of American efforts to stem the flow of the narcotics from Latin America. In a post on his Truth Social network, Trump said 11 people were killed in the rare U.S. military operation in the region. The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics heading to the United States, Trump said. No U.S. forces were harmed in the strike. Please let this serve as a notice to anybody that even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Trump has frequently blamed the gang for being one of the causes of the gang violence and illicit drug dealing that plagues some U.S. cities. He has also claimed that Tren de Araguas was operating under Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's control. So here's what to know. The reported deployment of the F-35 fighter jets to the region bolstered an already strong U.S. military presence near Venezuela and its coastline. The U.S. has deployed at least 8 warships to the Eastern Caribbean in recent weeks. A nuclear-powered fast attack submarine is also either in the region or on its way. As many as 4,500 U.S. Marines and sailors from the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit are carrying out drills in Puerto Rico, Reuters has reported. The Gravely, Jason Dunham, and Samson are Arlate Burke-class guided missile destroyers conducting counter-narcotics patrols, maritime surveillance, and escort missions. Their advanced radar and missile systems provide both defensive and offensive capabilities for the broader U.S. naval presence. Each Navy vessel carries a strike package that includes Tomahawk cruise missiles with a range of over 1,000 miles. So here's what people are saying. Maduro said on Monday the U.S. is seeking a regime change through military threat. He is saying the United States is trying to overthrow him. He added, in the face of this maximum military pressure, we have declared maximum preparedness for the defense of Venezuela. He said that the U.S. deployment to the region was an extravagant, unjustifiable, immoral, and absolutely criminal and bloody threat. U.S. Secretary of the State Marco Rubio said previous efforts to tackle the flow of drugs from Latin America to the United States have failed. What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them, Rubio said on his visit to Mexico on Thursday. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on Fox and Friends that Maduro was running his country as a kingpin of a drug narco state. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, let's take a look at some more video footage coming out on this. Going to give you some more updates. And again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Where are we going to be going from here? Are we going to see war or are we going to see peace? I saw a lot of people in the comments saying they thought that Maduro was bluffing, that he did not want any war with the United States, despite them sending those F-16s flying over our naval vessels in the Caribbean. Let me know your thoughts, and let's take a look at some video footage.
U.S. tonight is ordering a squadron of a dozen stealth fighter jets to the Caribbean to conduct operations against drug cartels. Of course, this all comes as Venezuela sends a message to the Trump administration, too. Lucas Tomlinson is at the White House tonight for us. Good evening to you, Lucas.
Good evening, Aisha. The White House has approved the deployment of 10 F-35 stealth fighter jets to Puerto Rico after a pair of Venezuelan F-16 jets buzzed an American-guided missile destroyer in the Caribbean. President Trump sent the following warning to Venezuela moments ago.
If they do put us in a dangerous position, they'll be shut down.
The Pentagon called the flyover of armed Venezuelan F-16s over the USS Jason Dunham highly provocative. The flyover took place 2 days after U.S. forces launched a strike on a Venezuelan drug boat in the Caribbean. President Trump said all 11 members of the Tren de Aragua gang on board were killed. The State Department declared the group a foreign terrorist organization in February. A Republican member of the Senate Armed Services Committee called the strike justified.
The boat had been warned to stop. They chose not to. They were clearly running drugs. We had been tracking it since it left Venezuela.
Many Democrats called the strike a violation of international law.
They think they can get away with this. God knows what they are going to do next. So that's what we're looking to right now, and there is reason to believe that this was not a legal action.
President Trump's defense secretary says the actions are justified after 400,000 Americans died from drug overdoses during the Biden administration.
A foreign terrorist organization poisoning your people with drugs coming from a drug cartel is no different than al-Qaeda.
At the height of the Obama administration, the U.S. military carried out drone strikes in 7 different countries: Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. Over 500 in all, killing an estimated 3,500 people, including hundreds of civilians. President Trump also made it official, changing the name of the Department of Defense.
We're going Department of War.
This marks the second time in American history the Department of War nomenclature has been used to describe the cabinet overseeing the U.S. military. The first time was back in 1789. Of course, it needs congressional approval, the name change. Aisha?
And Lucas, tonight we're hearing about a new incoming report from Health and Human Services on autism. What do you know about that?
Well, Aisha, according to the Wall Street Journal, a new report from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and HHS this new report is going to be on autism and saying that a vitamin B9 deficiency and taking the pain reliever Tylenol during pregnancy
That poisons the American people is an imminent threat. At the DoD, our job is to defeat imminent threats. A foreign terrorist organization poisoning your people with drugs coming from a drug cartel is no different than al-Qaeda. We smoked a drug boat, and there's 11 narco-terrorists at the bottom of the ocean, and when other people try to do that, they're going to meet the same fate.
Sending quite a message to Venezuela and the cartels. President Trump committing more assets to counter foreign cartels, while Democrats are vilifying him, claiming he did not act within his legal authority when he authorized military force to decimate that alleged drug peddling speedboat, which was headed directly for the United States. Meanwhile, the Trump administration says those allegations are a farce and that Tuesday's strike was only the beginning for those looking to terrorize the United States of America. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here with my co-host, Harris Faulkner. Also joining us, Nicole Parker. Not Nicole Parker. Oh, my goodness. That is Dr. Nicole Saphier. We got that one wrong. I love Nicole Parker. She's wonderful. We love you both. Two great Nicoles. I'll take either one. And Rosanna Scotto, Fox 5 New York anchor and host of The Underground Economy on Fox Nation. And Guy Benson, Fox News contributor and host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Well, let's start here. Secretary of State Marco Rubio gave praise to President Trump for going on offense, saying the attack was life-saving and a legal use of his presidential authority.
This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison, and under President Trump, those days are over.
Well, Trump has spent months trying to undo what Biden failed to do for the last 4 years. Now, according to the NIH, there were over 400,000 overdose deaths under former President Biden. Think about that, 400,000 Americans gone. And Democrats won't give Trump the recognition because they're too busy pandering to the criminals, like Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who famously sat down for some drinks with MS-13 member Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Well, Van Hollen didn't stop there. Listen to this beauty from MSNBC.
Am I crazy? Am I wrong here that this seems to violate both U.S. and international law?
Chris, you're absolutely right. What this was an extrajudicial killing, pure and simple. It was illegal. I think the Trump administration just wanted to get a video of a boat blowing up because they did that at the same time they're cutting the federal budget when it comes to actual drug enforcement and serious drug trafficking.
Dr. Saphier, so this was all about Trump wanting to get a video. Van Hollen uses the term, this is illegal on many counts. And we'll get to the law in a moment. I have that ready to go. Illegal on many counts. I want to bring up another count. It's one we just showed in the intro. It's the 400,000 Americans who have died of fentanyl. 400,000 daughters, sons, brothers, sisters not here because an attack, I'm going to call it an attack, on the United States, drug smuggling across our border and over our seas.
You know, the Wall Street Journal essentially did a hit piece on the Trump administration over this, and they quoted Juan Gonzalez, who was part of the Biden administration, saying that they needed to show legitimate self-defense for this attack and saying he did not do this. And just as you pointed out, 80,000 Americans died of drug overdoses last year. That's more than car accidents and homicides combined. That's more than the 23,000 worldwide deaths from terrorist attacks in 2023. So the way
There you see, guys, you see it, that they are saying that this is the greatest threat. They're declaring war against the cartels. And Donald Trump is saying, hey, we are going to take you out. And right now, Venezuela is taking it personally. So we're going to be seeing where we go from here with all of this. But as I mentioned, right now, tensions are high as we're seeing U.S. F-35s flying, Venezuelan F-16s flying over our naval fleets in the Caribbeans, and they are saying we are ready to wage war. U.S. Department of Defense is being named the U.S. Department of War, and some are claiming that these are war crimes. And right now we're hearing that J.D. Vance is saying, I don't give a blank what you think. We're going to do our best to protect the United States of America. And if you appreciate that approach, drop a 47 in the comments, hit that like button. But again, these are the headlines that we are seeing coming out. Venezuela flying for the second time in 2 days their military aircrafts over our U.S. Navy vessels in the Caribbean. The United States now deploying those jets as well. Marco Rubio saying we're ready to wage war and blow them up, whatever it takes. Donald Trump saying it's time for the U.S. War Department. And is this legal or not? Well, J.D. Vance says, I don't give a blink. We're going to see where we go from here, and I will keep you guys up to date every step of the way. But that is the latest that has been coming out as of today, September the 6th, 2025. And again, if you haven't done so yet, please hit that like button. We just need 18 more likes to have 1,900 likes while we're live. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Keep you up to speed on everything. And if you missed it, more major earthquakes. There is a blood moon happening this weekend. The Aurora Borealis lights are going to be visible from parts of the United States. All of this due to coronal mass ejections, massive solar activity happening right now, which they're saying scientists believe have a correlation to the seismic activity here on Earth. The earthquakes, the volcanoes, the tsunami warnings, they're saying are related to the sun's activity. That coming out in March of 2025. And so they're saying right now, with a lot of the activity we're seeing, there could be a lot of natural disasters that could be unfolding here very soon. Now, we will see. I will keep you up to date, but we've been seeing 6.0, 7.0, 8.0, 8.8 earthquakes striking, and we've got conflicts all over the world right now. I'll keep you up to date on all of it here on the channel. So subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll catch you in the next one, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.